Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of the Pole Position Podcast. In this one we're going to be reviewing the Brazilian Grand Prix, and what a race it was. I mean, 10 laps of absolute madness in the end. Everything was happening. We obviously had Valtteri Bottas DNFing, we had two safety cars, we had the Ferraris colliding, we had Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon hitting into each other on the second to last lap, and then we had the finishing order of Verstappen winning the race, Pierre Gasly coming in second, Pierre Gasly in a Toro Rosso, and in the end, after all the racing and all the steward inquiries had taken place, Lewis Hamilton obviously finished third in the race, but with his penalty after his collision with Albon, Carlos Sainz came home in third place. I mean, what an absolute podium! You couldn't bring it up. You couldn't make it up, should I say? I mean, absolutely fantastic. A chaotic Brazilian Grand Prix. A lot of people saying best race of the season. I'd still say the German Grand Prix was up there because that was absolutely insane, with the weather playing a factor as well, and constantly changing tyres from wet, dries, softs, hards. Everything was going on in that race. So I'd still say the German Grand Prix, but this has to be an easy second place. An absolutely fantastic race, and I'm going to go through a few points that I've picked out from the race weekend. So let's get into it. And point number one is Max Verstappen, and easily an absolute better year than he had last year. In the race last year, we had him collide with Esteban Ocon. And then they had a bit of a scuffle after the race because Esteban Ocon was trying to unlap himself and did it in the center S's, which for some reason didn't make any sense. He could have easily done it on the main straights with DRS, and that would have been easy, but no, Ocon had to try and do it in a really tight corner, and they both collided, and obviously Verstappen didn't get the win in the end, and he was absolutely distraught and sort of had his say with Esteban Ocon after the race. But yeah, easily the best driver of the weekend. Both quali and race were fantastic for the Dutchman, and passed Hamilton twice in the race and just looked in control. Even when Hamilton was in front of him, you could tell that Verstappen was going to get past at some point. He looked like the man this weekend. He looked like the man, even with both safety cars and having to restart the race. Even the second safety car with the restart, where he was holding everybody up just so they didn't get a run on him going down the straight to the start-finish line. All controlled well, maintained it well. For a young driver, he's so experienced, and yeah, that just shows. He's now moved up to third in the drivers' standings, and yeah, like I said, it just looked like his weekend. And obviously good for me, because my predictions were actually right for once. I got them right. I said, in fact, Max Verstappen would get pole position and he would win the race. So finally, I've got a prediction right. But yeah, forget about the predictions that I've said just for the minute. Max Verstappen, absolutely fantastic weekend. And yeah, he looked like, if Red Bull can give him a car next year that's going to fight consistently every race weekend, then we're going to look at a good championship for next season. So yeah, point number one, fantastic by Max Verstappen. And point number two is another driver in the Red Bull family, as it were, and that's Pierre Gasly. Finally, he has a weekend in the 2019 season to be happy and proud about. Now, I know he's had consistent points and he's done well since going back into the Toro Rosso team as well after the summer break. But with this whole season, losing the Red Bull seat, being demoted, and it hasn't been a great year for him in his Formula One career. But to be on the podium for the first time, and the joy it brought him, I bet his family as well, the whole Toro Rosso crew. It's always great to see them there, because they're so passionate. They absolutely love going racing, and to see them in the second place, to see the team in and around the paddock area, they were going wild, and it was amazing to see. Scored points in the 4 of the last 7 races, but of course, being second place, it obviously means more, and you could tell, he looked, and the way he sounded. If you haven't heard him on the team radio yet, just have a listen. It's probably on YouTube somewhere, and he was going crazy. There was nothing that I couldn't hear what he was actually saying, because it was just all screaming, but it was absolutely amazing. He looked I don't know, he looks so relieved, like finally there's something good that's happened in this season. Also, want to point out, great qualifying as well, 6th on the grid, great drive, and used the strategy well, and obviously that put him in the perfect position to sort of pounce on it. And even right at the end when he was battling with Lewis Hamilton, that Toro Rosso Honda, that Honda power unit, was doing well to sort of keep ahead of the Mercedes. And you could see Lewis Hamilton when they crossed the line, he's just like, his hands were like on the steering wheel. He's like so close. But yeah, again, credit to Honda. 1-2 could have been a 1-2-3 if Alex Albon hadn't collided with Hamilton. They could have had 3 Hondas, power units on the podium. That would have been sensational as well. But Gasly is now the 22nd Frenchman to finish on the podium. Another decent stat. And I just want to say, congratulations to Pierre Gasly. I think obviously it was a hard time for him being demoted. I could see why Red Bull did it. A fresh start, change, give him a little bit less pressure in the sister team, and I think absolutely credit where it's due. He's done a fantastic drive at the Brazilian Grand Prix and completely deserved the 2nd place. So yeah, point number 2 is fantastic for Pierre Gasly. And point number 3 is, well, here I am again on another podcast talking about Ferrari and their problems. I know I've been talking about them, but this has to be the worst one in a while. Ferrari just implodes, really, doesn't it? Already starting on the back foot, like I explained in the preview, with Charles Leclerc having a 10-place grid penalty. I think he started 14th in the race. Pace was okay. It wasn't brilliant this weekend. I knew Red Bull and obviously Max Verstappen were going to be top, but I wasn't sure who would be below would it be the Ferrari power or would it be Mercedes? I wasn't sure between them two, but pace was okay. Vettel was overtaken going into the center S's by Hamilton at the very start, so went from 2nd to 3rd immediately, but he was keeping up with them, so it didn't look like there was much of an issue. Leclerc, obviously starting 14th, was making his way back up the grid, doing a few decent overtakes and using that power to his advantage. But I suppose with the 2 safety cars coming into play, that allowed Charles Leclerc to sort of come level with Sebastian Vettel. And I think in one of them, Leclerc must have done a pit stop using the safety car, so he was on fresher tyres when he came up to Sebastian. And I'm not really quite sure. Leclerc obviously went in and made the move first into the turn 1. They went round the centre S's and Vettel looked like he was going to make a move, wanted to make that move, wanted to take that place back. And they sort of went neck and neck, and you could just tell something was going to happen. Whether it just be a little touch, whether they both sort of put their hands up, and something was bound to happen. But what actually happened, I honestly couldn't believe. It was absolutely crazy. It was the simplest of touch, but at the speed they're going at down that straight, it was enough. Leclerc lost his front right, Sebastian lost his back left. Both Ferraris out in one lap, colliding with each other. Leclerc's putting his hands up. Vettel's on the radio going, why would he do that? Both of them are blaming each other. And an absolute nightmare. Matteo Binotto is just sitting there, and you don't really want to be that guy, but the cameras immediately turn to you, and you're just sort of like, oh God, why? We've seen Christian Horner do it. The last time, I know the Hasses collide every other race, but I think the last proper time was it Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo in Baku last year, and Christian Horner looked like he was going to punch somebody at that point as well. But Binotto, I don't know, he just looked like we've had enough problems this year. We've been discussing how we need to change and we need to be better for next year, and here we are crashing into each other and getting 0 points. Everybody else was gaining points. I know they've basically got 2nd place already, or they've confirmed 2nd place. But to have no points going out the weekend is just, I don't know, it's just for Ferrari. I dread to think what the newspapers in Italy are these last couple of days, but it can't be good. And the amount of times I've said issues for Ferrari since I've been doing these podcasts, since I've started back as well, it's just, I don't know, that's why they're not winning world championships. There's just so many issues. People are on about the relationship between Vettel and Leclerc, sure, but the fact that they wasn't really in contention anyway. It was going to be Verstappen or Hamilton really who were going to win the race. But it's just huge issues for Ferrari. I mean, I shouldn't really go on more because I've probably said enough about Ferrari this season. I might have to be talking about them again in Abu Dhabi if they continue with these problems. But yeah, point number 3, Ferrari, a complete mess once again. And point number 4 is Carlos Sainz, like I mentioned, getting his 3rd place after all the stewards' inquiries. His first podium ever, and the first podium for McLaren since Australia 2014. Unbelievable that we've waited this long for McLaren to be back on the top step. It's an absolute travesty that they weren't able to go onto the podium. When the TVs were rolling, when the fans were there, when all the drivers were up there as well. There was pictures of Sainz and the whole McLaren crew, and I suppose that was nice to have everybody up there on the podium. It sort of reminded me when Alonso and Button were up there when everybody had gone home. That was in Brazil as well, wasn't it? A few years ago now, when they were with Honda. But it was just a bit of a shame. Why it takes the stewards so long to do all these penalties is crazy. The Hamilton Albon one, for me, it was sort of a slam dunk that Hamilton was going to get a penalty. It just looked like the door was open, but it was sort of a desperate hope from Hamilton to get that place. And I think both of them were sort of to blame. But when Hamilton's the driver trying to make the overtake, he went for a gap that closed immediately, and for me it was a penalty. It was going to be a penalty. So I think that they should have just let Sainz go up there. Yes, I know Sainz was under investigation for using DRS while there was yellow flags or something, but it was like, well, I think it would be better to give it to Sainz. And then if there are issues and he gets a penalty, then somebody else will take it in the end. But I think Sainz was deserving of that penalty deserving of that podium more than Hamilton was. I think Hamilton's was easily a penalty, but they gave it to him after the race. And it's just like, well, that's just not fair on Sainz or McLaren that are desperate for this podium. Hamilton's had bloody loads. So yeah, absolute shame that they didn't actually get to do that in the moment and celebrate in the moment. But had a bad Saturday, didn't even start, had issues, qualified P20, absolute shame for him, not set a competitive lap time, but the way he made up places on the Sunday was absolutely incredible. He made that one-stop work tremendously, and it's just a credit to McLaren, really, fantastic job, did a spectacular job to finish 4th, and obviously getting that podium in 3rd place at the end of the day was, I suppose, amazing for McLaren as well as Sainz. Alonso congratulated the team and obviously the Spanish driver of Sainz, both Spaniards congratulating each other. And it was immense. So point number 4, absolutely amazing job by McLaren and by Carlos Sainz to get their first podium. Okay, so the final point number 5, I'm just going to go through some other driver performances because a lot happened in this race. So I'm just going to go through a couple of other drivers. Obviously, Valtteri Bottas. I don't want to say, from the win he had in Austin, he really seemed to struggle at the Brazilian Grand Prix, and this is what I was saying in the last review podcast, is that if he wants to win the World Championship, he needs to sort of, I don't know, he needs to have like a consistency throughout the races. But because one minute he's really good, the next he just sort of goes missing during the race, and I think that's what happened really in Brazil. Didn't really do much in qualifying, qualified down the order, and again struggled throughout the race. Wasn't really in contention. He was always 5-6 seconds behind Vettel or Hamilton or whoever. And just sort of seemed to struggle. He then had the power issue as well, which saw him retire. Only the second time this season. The other one was in Germany where he crashed out. And I think this is the Mercedes' first reliability issue since Austria, where they both retired last season. So the power unit is obviously so consistent, but Bottas not so. If he wants to beat Hamilton next year, he needs to be always in and around the top. And Sunday he just went missing. So, bit of an issue for Bottas. Alex Albon, like I mentioned before, really, really disappointing for him. Obviously, was going to be his first podium. Looked like it was going to be his first podium. Would have been a Red Bull 1-2. Would have been a Red Bull family 1-2-3 had it stayed where it was. But really close for podium had it not been for spun round by Hamilton on the final few laps. Went from second to 15th just to make it worse. But his time will come. He's been announced, like we said, for next season alongside Verstappen, and wasn't really in contention for the win, really. It was only after the few safety cars and the issues with Ferrari that he made his way up the order. But you've got to be in the right place at the right time, and he was. Up until the issue with Hamilton. So, it will come. More confidence in the Red Bull car, the more time he gets inside it. Obviously he's got the first full winter with the team this season coming. So, yeah, I think it will come, but very disappointed for him, with the likes of Gasly and Sainz, getting their first podiums. It would have been nice for Albon to maybe get his as well, but yeah, it'll come. Daniel Ricciardo, I just want to mention as well, didn't start well with a collision with Kevin Magnussen early on, ended up with a 5-second penalty, but he made his way, got his head down, made his way through the order, doing classic Daniel Ricciardo overtakes, and finished in 7th place. So, well done to him. And the Renault seemed to be struggling this weekend. I think Hülkenberg finished in 12th. I'm not sure, but they seem to be having a few issues this season. But 7th place for Ricciardo is good enough, I suppose. Alfa Romeo is a team that I should really give a mention, and that's what I'm doing now. Great work by both of them. I think Fred Vasseur was sort of saying that they weren't doing enough in the last couple of races. They weren't performing well enough. But he can't say any more, because after Hamilton's penalty, Raikkonen 4th and Giovinazzi 5th. I mean, it would have been 5th and 6th anyway, but 4th and 5th. Congratulations. I mean, great job really for the Alfa Romeo team. Kimi's ended his 7-race pointless streak. So that's obviously nice to get rid of that stat. I think that was the longest in his career. And Giovinazzi, his best result in Formula 1. So huge. I think they were the second highest in terms of gaining points this weekend. So yeah, huge for Alfa Romeo as well. When they need to keep going up the order in terms of the standings. So yeah, Bottas, Albon, Ricciardo, and Alfa Romeo. They're some of the other performances that happened throughout the weekend. So I'm now going to move on from my points. I have got down in exclamation marks that I got my predictions right, but I've already mentioned that, so I don't want to keep going on about it, but I got my predictions right. Couple of stats. This weekend was Verstappen's 75th career points finish. And his first win starting from pole position. So, it's surprising really with how well he's been doing since he came onto the scene. That's his first pole position to win that he's ever done. But, Gasly second, his first podium. Toro Rosso's highest finish since Vettel won in Italy, 2008. Funny enough, Vettel crashing with Leclerc was one of the reasons why Gasly got the podium. So, yeah, I mean, Gasly will be like saying cheers, Vettel. But, Honda took their first 1-2 since Ayrton Senna, which Ayrton Senna was talked obviously a lot every time we come round to the Brazilian Grand Prix. One of the best drivers we've ever seen in the sport. Since Senna won his final world title in Japan 1991, the first time Honda's had a 1-2. They're just some of the stats. I mean, incredible really for Honda to have a 1-2. Like I said, could have been a 1-2-3, but sadly that wasn't the case. Just going to go through the drivers' standings now. Lewis Hamilton, we already know, 387 points. Valtteri Bottas, 314. Max Verstappen in third with 260. So he obviously came to third place now. He took that win in Brazil. Leclerc and Vettel stay on the same points after they crashed out. 241 for Leclerc. 230 for Sebastian Vettel. Gasly in 6th and Sainz in 7th, both on 95 points. That'll be interesting going down to the final weekend in Abu Dhabi. Alex Albon as well. He could have been up into the points as well, but with his issue with Hamilton, finishes in 8th in the standings at the minute with 84 points. Ricciardo in 9th with 54, and Perez in 10th with 46. Just going to have a look at the constructors. Mercedes, obviously we know, 701. Ferrari, 479. Red Bull Racing, 391. And then we've got McLaren Renault, who've secured their constructors at 4th. So huge for them, working their way back up the order. It's nice to see that they've secured 4th position in the constructors. And then it's between Renault, Toro Rosso and Racing Point, really. I mean, Alfa with them points is handy, but Renault on 91 points, Toro Rosso with 83, Racing Point with 67, and Alfa Romeo with 57. So it's still close to call to see who will finish in that top area. I think Renault will just do enough. It's whether Alfa Romeo can sort of topple Force India then. Is going to topple Racing Point. And then you've got Haas on 28 and Williams still with their 1 point for the season. Yeah, that's my Brazilian Grand Prix review. Thank you very much to watching and listening. I will be doing a preview of the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, so stay tuned for that. And then obviously a review of the race as well, and then I might do a review of the season. Who I think's been the best driver, the best race of the year. Best team, best overtake, whatever. I might do a review of the season as well. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.